After the age of 50, pain often enters daily life quietly, without drama, yet with enough persistence to reshape how a person moves, thinks, and anticipates the day ahead. Sciatic pain in particular carries a reputation that can feel heavy, as though it signals irreversible damage or a body that has somehow failed its owner. From a scientific standpoint, this interpretation misses something essential. The body does not suddenly abandon its logic with age. It continues to communicate, and pain is one of its most precise languages. The sciatic nerve, the largest and longest nerve in the body, is not designed to break easily, it is designed to respond. When discomfort appears, it reflects changes in pressure, movement patterns, circulation, or inflammation rather than structural collapse. Over decades, the body adapts to habits both conscious and unconscious. Muscles learn which ones will be asked to work more and which can remain quiet. Joints adjust their range to repeated tasks. Connective tissue slowly changes its texture and hydration. None of this is pathological, it is biological memory. Sciatic pain often arises when these adaptations narrow the physical space through which the nerve travels or alter how force moves through the hips and spine. The nerve reacts not because it is damaged, but because its environment has become less accommodating. In this way, pain acts less like a verdict and more like a signal flare drawing attention to imbalance. Modern neuroscience shows that nerves are highly sensitive to their surroundings. They depend on consistent blood flow, gentle movement, and chemical stability to function comfortably. When movement becomes restricted, whether from fear, stiffness, or prolonged sitting, the nerve's ability to glide is reduced. This leads to increased sensitivity, not injury. The body responds by amplifying sensation, hoping to encourage change. Pain, then, is not punishment but persuasion, a biological request for motion, variation, and space. There is also an emotional dimension that shapes how pain is perceived. When discomfort is interpreted as damage, the nervous system enters a protective state. Muscles tighten, breathing becomes shallow, and posture grows rigid, all of which further compress sensitive structures. When pain is understood as information, the response softens. Curiosity replaces fear, and the body becomes more willing to move gently rather than brace defensively. This shift alone can reduce pain intensity by calming the nervous system and lowering stress-related chemical signals that heighten sensitivity. The body after 50 continues to be adaptable, but it adapts best when it is listened to rather than forced. Sciatic pain invites a slower dialogue, one that respects accumulated history while encouraging renewal. By responding with awareness instead of resistance, space begins to return to the areas that need it most, circulation improves, tension eases, and the nerve gradually regains a sense of safety within the body, allowing movement to feel less threatening and more like a return to something familiar rather than a struggle against time and change. When movement is discussed in the context of pain relief, it is often framed as something that must be intense or corrective, as though the body responds only to force and effort. Yet the science of human movement suggests something far more subtle. Simple, intentional motion has a profound influence on the internal environment of the body, especially on sensitive structures like nerves. The sciatic nerve does not require aggressive stretching or strenuous exercise to feel relief. It responds to changes in circulation, temperature, and mechanical space, all of which can be influenced by movements that appear modest on the surface. Every gentle motion sets off a cascade of physiological responses. As muscles contract and release in a controlled manner, blood flow increases, delivering oxygen and nutrients while carrying away inflammatory byproducts. This shift in circulation changes the chemical landscape around the nerve, reducing irritation and allowing signals to travel more smoothly. Even small movements can improve lymphatic flow, helping the body manage swelling and tissue congestion that contribute to nerve sensitivity. What matters is not the size of the movement, but its quality and consistency. Muscles are designed to work in coordination, yet pain often disrupts this cooperation. When one muscle becomes tight or overactive, others compensate, altering joint mechanics and increasing pressure in unintended areas. Intentional movements help restore balance by gently reintroducing coordinated patterns. The hips, spine, and legs begin to share load more evenly, reducing the localized strain that often aggravates the sciatic nerve. Over time, this redistribution of effort creates a more spacious and supportive environment for the nerve to pass through. There is also an important neurological component to simple movement. The brain relies on sensory feedback to regulate pain. Slow, deliberate motion provides clear, non-threatening input that reassures the nervous system. This reduces the brain's tendency to amplify pain signals as a protective measure. As confidence in movement grows, the nervous system becomes less reactive, and the threshold for discomfort gradually rises. This process does not rely on willpower or endurance, but on repetition and trust. Importantly, these movements serve as reminders rather than repairs. They remind the body how to move without guarding, how to transition between positions smoothly, and how to maintain balance without excessive tension. For individuals over 50, this approach respects both the history and the capacity of the body. It avoids overwhelming tissues that may be less resilient while still encouraging adaptation. With regular, intentional practice, circulation improves, inflammation softens, and muscle coordination becomes more efficient, allowing the sciatic nerve to exist within a system that supports rather than challenges it, and making relief feel less like an intervention and more like a natural consequence of restoring harmony within the body. As the body ages, its changes are often described in terms of loss, yet from a biological perspective, they are better understood as shifts in material properties and priorities. Connective tissue, which includes fascia, ligaments, and the outer layers of muscles, gradually becomes less hydrated over time. This change affects how easily tissues slide against one another and how efficiently forces are distributed through the body. Nerves, which are highly sensitive to pressure and chemical changes, become more reactive when this sliding ability is reduced. The result is not fragility, but heightened awareness, a system that is more alert to compression and restriction. Hydration within tissues is not solely dependent on drinking water. It is heavily influenced by movement. Gentle, repeated motion acts like a pump, drawing fluid into connective tissue and encouraging exchange between cells. Without this motion, tissues become denser and less elastic, narrowing the spaces through which nerves travel. Slow, mindful movements counter this process by restoring fluid dynamics. When the spine bends, rotates, or lengthens gently, it encourages discs and surrounding structures to rehydrate, subtly changing the internal geometry that affects nerve comfort. Nerve sensitivity also increases when movement becomes abrupt or unpredictable. Fast or forceful actions can trigger protective responses, especially in tissues that have adapted to years of caution or reduced range. Slow motion provides the nervous system with time to interpret signals accurately. It allows the brain to distinguish between threat and sensation, reducing unnecessary alarm. This is why deliberate pacing is not merely a preference but a physiological necessity for restoring comfort in aging bodies. The role of the spine is particularly important in this process. Spinal segments rely on coordinated motion to distribute load evenly. When certain segments move less, others compensate, creating areas of excess pressure. Mindful movement restores rhythm to the spine, ensuring that no single area bears more than its share. This rhythmic motion reduces irritation around nerve roots and improves the overall efficiency of movement. Over time, this can significantly reduce the sensitivity that contributes to sciatic discomfort. Perhaps most importantly, slow and intentional movement reestablishes trust between the nervous system and the body. Pain often leads to avoidance, and avoidance leads to further sensitivity. Mindful motion breaks this cycle gently. Each successful movement without pain sends a signal of safety, gradually reshaping the brain's expectations. The body learns that motion does not have to result in harm, and the nervous system becomes less vigilant. In this way, mindful movement does more than address physical stiffness. It reshapes perception, improves confidence, and creates an internal environment where nerves can function without constant alertness, allowing comfort to emerge not from force or correction, but from restored fluidity and communication throughout the body. Pain is often treated as a purely physical event, but the body does not experience sensation in isolation. Every signal travels through the nervous system, where it is interpreted, filtered, and given meaning. When sciatic pain becomes persistent, the nervous system can begin to operate in a heightened state of alert, scanning for threat and amplifying sensations as a protective strategy. This response is not a malfunction, it is an expression of survival biology. The challenge arises when this state of vigilance outlasts the original trigger, keeping muscles tense and movement guarded even when immediate danger is no longer present. Simple, calming movements influence this process in powerful ways. Slow motion paired with steady breathing sends signals of safety to the brain. Heart rate decreases, muscle tone softens, and the nervous system shifts away from a defensive posture. This shift reduces the release of stress-related chemicals that sensitize pain receptors. As the internal environment becomes calmer, pain signals lose their urgency and intensity. The body is not being distracted from pain, it is being reassured that it no longer needs to sound the alarm. There is a feedback loop between fear and pain that often goes unnoticed. Anticipation of discomfort can cause muscles to brace before movement even begins. This tension limits mobility and increases pressure on sensitive structures like nerves. Calming exercises interrupt this loop by encouraging awareness rather than anticipation. When attention is directed toward sensation without judgment, the brain receives clearer information. This clarity reduces the tendency to exaggerate signals, allowing movement to unfold more naturally and with less resistance. Breathing plays a central role in this calming process. Deep, unforced breaths stimulate the parasympathetic nervous system, which supports recovery and repair. As breathing deepens, the diaphragm moves more freely, influencing spinal mechanics and reducing unnecessary strain in the lower back. This mechanical effect combines with neurological calming, creating conditions where the sciatic nerve can exist without constant pressure from surrounding tension. Emotional reassurance is an often overlooked component of physical healing. When movements feel gentle and controlled, they rebuild confidence. Each pain-free motion becomes evidence that the body is capable, not fragile. This sense of capability alters how the brain predicts future experiences. Pain is no longer expected, and without that expectation, the nervous system relaxes further. Over time, this changes the baseline level of tension within the body, making discomfort less likely to arise. The calming effect of these movements extends beyond the immediate session. Regular practice teaches the nervous system a new pattern of response. Instead of reacting with alarm, it learns to assess sensation with curiosity and restraint. This learned calm becomes part of the body's default state, influencing posture, movement, and even rest. In this way, exercises designed to soothe the nervous system do more than relieve symptoms. They reshape the relationship between mind and body, allowing comfort to emerge through trust, patience, and a deepened sense of internal safety that supports healing from the inside out. With time, the relationship many people have with their bodies becomes shaped by urgency. There is a desire to return to how movement once felt, to reclaim speed, strength, or flexibility through effort alone. Yet the body after 50 responds differently. It does not resist movement, but it does resist being rushed. Healing in this stage of life unfolds through listening rather than commanding, through observing subtle signals instead of overpowering them. Pain, especially sciatic discomfort, becomes a teacher in this process, encouraging a shift from force to awareness. Every body carries a history written into its tissues. Years of work, posture, stress, and habit leave their imprint on muscles and joints. Respecting this history does not mean surrendering to limitation. It means acknowledging that adaptation happens most effectively when the body feels understood. Consistent, gentle movement offers this understanding. It communicates patience, allowing tissues time to adjust and the nervous system space to recalibrate. Trust is rebuilt not through dramatic change, but through repetition and reliability. Listening to the body requires attention to nuance. A slight pulling sensation, a moment of ease, or a subtle increase in warmth all convey information. When these signals are noticed rather than ignored, movement becomes more precise. The body begins to guide its own recovery, steering away from strain and toward balance. This dialogue between sensation and action reduces unnecessary tension and helps the sciatic nerve settle into an environment that feels stable rather than unpredictable. Consistency plays a critical role in this process. Occasional effort cannot compete with regular, mindful practice. Each session reinforces neural pathways that associate movement with safety. Over time, these pathways become the default, replacing patterns of guarding and hesitation. The nervous system learns that movement is not a threat, and muscles stop bracing in anticipation of pain. This gradual reprogramming is what allows relief to endure rather than fluctuate. There is also a broader philosophical shift that accompanies this approach. Instead of viewing the body as something to be fixed, it becomes something to collaborate with. Movement becomes a form of respect rather than correction. This shift influences not only how exercises are performed, but how daily activities are approached. Standing, walking, and sitting are done with greater awareness, reducing cumulative strain and supporting long-term comfort. As trust deepens, the body responds with resilience. Balance improves, movement feels more fluid, and confidence returns without strain. Sciatic pain loses its dominance, no longer defining choices or limiting participation. What emerges is not a return to youth, but a refined form of strength rooted in adaptability. By listening rather than forcing, the body is given permission to heal at its own pace, revealing a capacity for comfort and stability that grows stronger through patience, attention, and an ongoing conversation between intention and sensation.